All right, you know what time it is. It's the New York Giants squad show. Unfortunately, the Giants are 0-2. We'll try and get them to 0-3. Interestingly enough, the Giants have never lost to the Chiefs at home. We'll discuss coming up next.
I'm Patricia Traina of New York Giants. I'm Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants, and I've got a question for Mark Collins about the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm Mark Collins, two-time Super Bowl champion. Listen, the tale of two games. Which Giant team will show up this week? We saw the bad week one. We saw some ugly and some good week two against Dallas. Which will we see against the Chiefs?
Let's go. Let's go, Big Blue. It's the New York Giants squad. Everything New York Giants every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the G-Men. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. The Giants Squad Show starts now.
All right, we are ready to go. My name is Jay Berman. And of course, as we said, it's the New York Giants Squad Show. Welcome to the Squad Show, both on the Locked On Giants YouTube channel and the Locked On Giants podcast feed. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Patricia, it's Jay, it's Mark, and unfortunately, we're getting set with an 0-2 football team. Patricia obviously backs against the wall here with an 0-2 wounded Chiefs team coming in. As we do this time every week, big picture, your thoughts heading into week 3.
Well, as I said in the intro, I've got a question for Mark Collins, who Giant fans probably know finished out his career in Kansas City. Mark, what's going on with the Chiefs? They do not look like the powerhouse that they've been. But yeah, just, before you answer that, big get-right opportunity for one of these two teams. The Chiefs are favored in this game. The Giants coming off a very deflating loss to the Dallas Cowboys, a game they probably should have won. And I'm just a little concerned about the feeling in the locker room. Are they deflated? Are they able to flush it and move ahead, have that cornerback mentality? But, it's going to be quite the slugfest, I think, Sunday night.
Yeah, we'll start with the Giants' performance first. As we spoke last week, I just wanted to see some improvement based on what we saw against Washington. And I got to be honest, they look good. You throw out all the stupid-ass penalties and stuff like that. We'll talk about that later. They look like a team that they could really get some stuff going. On your question, Patricia, here in Kansas City, and this is just a feeling, being around the organization to a point, they lost to two pretty damn good teams. They didn't get blown out. A couple of plays here and there, the Chiefs will be 2-0. They feel they don't want to be 0-2, but they're more fixable than what the Giants are, put it that way. Because they're feeling they're not at full strength by all means. But they got receivers out, Rashid Rice is out, Worthy is out. They haven't really established a running game. They're not really firing on all cylinders right now. They feel better now than what the Giants are feeling right now. So that's what I'm feeling here in Kansas City. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, as Patricia mentioned, they're obviously underdogs, 6 points at this point in time, which is a lot, obviously, for a road team. But they come in different ways, as you said, 0-2 for both the Chiefs and the Giants. Mark, as we mentioned at the top, the Chiefs have never beaten the Giants in New York, which is amazing. Now, They don't play very often. 4-11 are the Chiefs against the Giants. So at least, at the very least, we have quote unquote home field advantage, if you will. But again, very difficult task.
Yeah, it's that's an amazing stat, amazing history. But this is a whole different era right now. The Giants are a team, an organization that's been struggling for the last 10 plus years. And Kansas City has been on an upswing for the last 7-8 years since Mahomes has taken over. But, throw history aside, right now on paper, the Chiefs are a better team. And as we saw last week, and Patricia, you have more in tune with the team than I am because you're there. I'm gonna throw this question to you. From what I saw in the game, I kind of saw a little mutiny going on. It was almost a mutiny on the sidelines when the Hudson got pulled, and I thought that whole thing was about to unravel. I don't know how the locker room is, and I think we comment on that, but tell me more about that, because what I saw didn't look very good.
Yeah, that was a major epic meltdown. I mean, James Hudson committed, well, he was flagged for 4 penalties. Head coach Brian Dable said it was actually 3. There was I think a false start that was called against him that wasn't. But, you can't have that. You can't be losing your cool on a game like that. And basically, it kind of served as a little disruption because, look, on the sidelines, and Mark, you can attest to this, it's hectic enough on the sideline. And when you have fireworks that are unexpected going off, and you've got a guy who's just absolutely throwing a temper tantrum, and you have, like, I think Mike Kafka had to settle him down, a couple of his teammates, Carmen Brasillo, Dable. I mean, you had literally like 5 people trying to settle down James Hudson. And to James Hudson's credit, yesterday he did take, accountability for his actions, said it would never happen again. But that was kind of, you don't see that very often. You don't see 4 penalties from by player on one drive, and it kind of almost set the tone a little bit, especially on that first drive.
Not only that, the offensive line play on the left side got better once he left. It improved.
Isn't that amazing? Amazing how that works out. And, either it got better because he was the issue that he was out, or the replacement was better. So, but I digress. Yeah, you can't have that kind of incidents on the sideline, because that could have went really bad real fast. And I'm glad that I saw Jameis Winston talk to him. You need that kind of leadership when something like that goes around. I'm glad that the Giants broke, of course, Wilson now and Jameis Winston in to have that kind of leadership to kind of tap that stuff down.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue into that leadership. Obviously, we did not like what we saw from Russ week 1. Patricia, we love what we saw from Russ week 2, with the exception of the floater at the end. My question is, what are we getting from Russ this week? I honestly, it's probably somewhere in between. I prefer the good, but you just don't know.
No, you don't. And that's the beauty of the NFL. You never know. That's why you line up and you play the game. I would like to think that performance in week 2, even with that, that floater at the end there, that it inspired confidence that, hey, we can do this against, a solid opponent. We can be this effective. So, the challenge I think Russell Wilson and the Giants offense are going to have, Steve Spagnuolo likes to blitz, and he does some really creative blitzing. Mm-hmm. So they've got to be on their toes against that pressure. And I think you're right, Jay. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. It would be nice if he throws for over 400 yards, because we hadn't seen that. And I can't remember the last time we saw that. I think we'd have to go back to Eli maybe. Yeah. That's going to be a good challenge for them up front, because they are facing a very, very good Kansas City defensive front. Dare I say, even better than what they saw against Dallas.
A good start is imperative. I mean, that goes for every sport, every game. We know it. But with your backs against the wall, 0-2 against what we all think is a better team, Mark, the start is just crucial.
Yeah. It's the start of the season and the start of this game coming up. The little thing about Kansas City, they know how to play Russell Wilson. They have some success, especially last year when he was in Pittsburgh. Spags knows how to blitz, as Patricia says. And one way to get to Russ Wilson is go up the middle. That last floater against Dallas, the pressure came up the middle. So he just lobbed it up. He does that a lot. Kansas City, of course, on paper, and you can say on the field as well, have the better talent on defense and on offense. Can the Giants play with Kansas City? Yeah, on any given Sunday, you can play with anybody. Kansas City's coming in to MetLife with something to prove. They want to beat the Giants. Of course, the history's there of Kansas City not winning against the Giants 4-11, as you stated, Jay. But they feel they have the better team. What can the Giants do to win the game? played flawless. 14 penalties or whatever it was. You will get blown up by the 0-2 Chiefs if you do stuff like that. That will not happen. That can't happen.
Yeah, that better have been the focus, or at least one of the bigger focuses of practice this week, Patricia, and that's obviously the penalties. It's almost unheard of how many penalties that were accepted. So it's not like this happens every week. Question is, what does a coach say to a player after 14 or however many penalties? I mean, it's not like they don't know.
Right. I mean, look, there's two types of penalties, as Brian Dibble said. There's the pre-snap and post-snap penalties, which can be avoided. And then there's those that you're kind of at the mercy of the officials. I think in this game, there were a few that I question if they were really penalties, including one of the roughing the passer ones.
Yeah.
The one where I think it was Roy Robertson Harris landed on his side, but yet he got flagged for roughing the passer. I don't know if that was necessarily a penalty, but you've got to tell your players, look, you have to be disciplined, guys. Know the snap count. You guys know the snap count, so there should be no reason why you're jumping. And the post snap stuff. I know it's easier said than done because it's the heat of the moment, but you got to cool it. You can't be smacking guys around or throwing them down to the ground aggressively. You've got to be smart, because the bottom line is this team has yet to show that it is good enough to overcome its own mistakes.
Yeah, and it's funny because we have not brought up Andrew Thomas yet, and he apparently from Twitter, from what I can gather, he took part in practice today, I guess as much as someone in his spot could. Obviously, we all want him to come back, but I think at this point in time, Mark, we still don't know.
And that's a big deal, especially George Kalafdis is coming in town with the Kansas City Chiefs, rushing on that blind side of the quarterback. You better have some protection. And if Thomas is playing this week, is he ready for that kind of pressure in that competition? That'd be the main thing: his conditioning and his readiness, his quickness. But the Giants got to do something. Can they withhold the pass rush of Kansas City? In Kansas City, they got a pretty formidable front four. They could get pressure on the quarterback. As I said before, they know how to play Russell Wilson. Can the offensive line hold up, especially with the way Spags blitzes? And even if Spags doesn't blitz as much, that front four with Chris Jones and those guys, they know how to put pressure on the quarterback.
I'm nervous about the crowd. I'm nervous that the Boo Birds will arrive. I'm nervous that they'll boo for Jackson Dart to come in the game. I have a bad feeling, especially in the first half, if the Giants fall behind, Patricia. I hate doing this every week, but is this, at this point in time, a package for Jackson Dart, specifically in the second half of a game? They might trail by multiple touchdowns. Is that possible this week?
I think it's all going to depend. I mean, look, you mentioned you're nervous about the crowd. I'm nervous about the offensive line, and in particular, the interior. That unit still has yet to put its act together. And, you've got John Michael Schmitz at center, and I don't mean to keep picking on the kid because he does work his tail off, but he's going up against that Spags defense, which, he better have studied really hard because, one of the strengths of John Michael Schmitz's game was that his football savviness, his football IQ. So at least have that going for you. And that's what I'm concerned about. To your question, Jay, about Jackson Dart, I think it's going to depend on the flow. I mean, if Russell Wilson is getting beaten up back there because his offensive line isn't protecting him, how can you justify pulling him and saying, oh, it's going to be better with Jackson Dart in there? I mean, Russell Wilson last week, to his credit, got the ball out of his hand a lot quicker than he did in week one. So you got to take multiple factors into consideration, I think, before you say, okay, yeah, it's time to flip the switch.
I'm just worried about and I agree with you. I'm worried about over-emotional, angry fans. And it's not to suggest that Brian Dable is easily, convinced. I'm just saying sometimes things get away, and they sort of snowball, if you will, Mark. So eggshells for me. And that may be not the way to feel, I guess, for lack of a better term, heading into a home opener. But I'm nervous. I really am. I'm scared.
And I hear what you're saying, but if a coach is going to start listening to the Boo Birds and doing what the fans like, he shouldn't be a coach. He's got to make his own mind to do what he needs to do what's best for the team. And, you know, and I concur with Patricia. If Russell's getting his back beat in, but because of protection, why put Dart in that situation? And it does all. It depends on how the flow of the game is going. So, you know, it's going to be well, I shouldn't say it's going to be a tough one. The situation is going to be the situation, whatever it plays out. If the Giants are hanging in tough and playing very well against the Chiefs, of course you leave Russell Wilson in. If they're getting their backs beat in, you still better leave him in, especially if there's no protection. And let the fans boo all they want, but that is the way it's going to be. Now, if the Giants go 0-3, then you come back to the drawing board, and then you start talking about this Dart State, which we said before as we started the shows a couple of weeks ago. If the Giants start 0-3 and 0-4, it's time to hit that glass in case of emergency and put Dart in.
All right, we've done plenty of offense to start. Block 2 will feature defense, and we'll do that coming up next. All right, it's time to tell you about 5-Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about good times and good people, and of course, good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st. 2025. All right, we are back on the New York Giants Squad Show, block number 2 with Patricia, Mark, and myself. My name is Jay. Let's do the defense. Something that caught my eye after week 2 was the fact that the Bears, the only team in the NFC to give up more points than the Giants. Obviously, a lot of it coming last week. And to be fair, it could have been worse against Washington, but Patricia, again, giving up those points, the defense, a big reason why the Giants are in an 0-2 hole.
Yeah, you know, I got to confess, I don't want to keep picking on Shane Bowen, but last year I questioned whether he would be back this year. I'm still questioning why he's back. Some of the coverages that he called, now, again, to his credit, on Thursday, he owned up to it. He says, you know, I should have done this. Well, I have a saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't. And, you know, saying you should have done this and you didn't, and, you know, it's too late to admit to that. So, I mean, maybe that's just getting it off his chest. But some of the coverages, I mean, in particular, and I broke this down on Locked On Giants, that 18-yard pickup by the tight end. You had Dane Belton, who was backpedaling away from the tight end. You had Bobby Okereke, who was out in the next county. They formed kind of like a half circle instead of bracketing the coverage. I just didn't understand what they were doing on that particular play. And that was a big play because that allowed the Cowboys to get into field goal range for Brandon Aubrey to kick that long field goal and win the game, and, you know, or tie the game, I should say.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, Mark, it's an amazing stat as well. The Giants defense allows the 4th most yards per drive at 43.5. And obviously that's inside football there. But the point is the numbers are not good.
No, they're not good. But when I saw the Giants kept running this too high safety look. And whenever there's too high safeties, Dak knew exactly where to throw the ball. Now, the technique from the corners, and I'll get back to the point about the tight end is always open against the Giants. the too high safety, the corners should be lined up inside to jam receivers out to go outside. Well, the corners were lined up outside about 4 or 5 times. Dak kept on that quick little slant in the corner against the corner. Well, if the corner is outside leverage, that slant is always open. So I don't know if they're being coached properly, or I have no idea. But when your corners aren't lined up properly, the quarterback has two options. Two high safety, he could attack up the middle because the safeties are going out to cover the receivers on the jam on the outside release, and the middle is wide open. You could bracket that tight end because that tight end is going to go straight in between the safeties or hitch or whatever he wants to do. So with that being said, Shane Bowen, if he's calling the cover 2 or under 2 man, the corners must be aligned properly. I don't know if they're being coached to line up outside, and the easiest throw in football is a slant route. And they kept giving it up. Now, the overtime, I don't know what the hell that was. To get to overtime, I don't know what the hell coverage they're running. But they hit a couple quick slants on them. So, should Shane Bowen be there? I'll leave that up to the experts and the coaches.
Hot seat. He's on the hot seat for sure. I think, if there's going to be any kind of, change, I think that's where you look to first. I know people say, oh, Dable will be the first one to go. Bowen, I think, is probably has the hottest seat of all.
You don't give up 40 points. I mean, that's college shit. I mean, 40 points. I don't know. With all that talent on paper we talk about, the first half they looked pretty decent. I got to give them credit. They looked decent. Okay, all right, I got you. But that second half, when Dak really figured out where to attack and what they were doing, because that's these good quarterbacks, they do stuff like that. They got Mahomes coming in town. All right? He would dissect that. Oh, it's going to be ridiculous. But anyway.
You both have forgotten more football than I'll ever know. My question now is about Dex, because just as an average football fan watching, didn't notice him once in 2 weeks with maybe an exception or two. Obviously had the kid, so that's going to affect as much as it would anyone else. Is Dex healthy? That's my question, because he's been invisible. Sorry to say, Patricia.
Yeah, he has definitely not played like the all-world defensive lineman that we all know and love. My theory here is I question his conditioning. He came into camp and they gradually worked him into the lineup. All right. They gradually, that he practiced throughout, but, they ramped him up. This after his elbow was deemed healthy. I mean, if you remember back at the Pro Bowl, he was participating in tug of war. And if your elbow isn't healthy, you're not pulling anything. You're not participating in tug of war. Then Dex did not play at all in the preseason. And as I have said so many times, and I'll say it again here, you've got to play preseason snaps because that's what helps get you into game shape. So I question, and your point about having the baby, that could be a factor. But I question if Dexter was legitimately in game shape from not playing in the preseason, from having that slow ramp up that he had. And, we spoke to him yesterday in the locker room and he said, I will be better this week against Kansas City. And, if the big guy says that, who am I to question it? But that's where I question with him, not so much is he healthy, but is he in football shape, these first 2 weeks? I don't think he's been.
No, I'm being facetious when I say this. Dexter didn't have the baby, so that's a moot point. But he's out of shape. Okay, let's call it as we see it. He's out of shape. He's not game ready. It may take him a week or 3 to get ready to be in game shape, football shape, and that's basically it. He's been a no-show, and that's detrimental for the pass rush, for stopping the run, and for making the whole defense collectively better. Can he do it against the Chiefs? We'll see. But man, that's a big cog that's been stopping the Giants from being a profoundly good, a better defense.
Yeah, if Dex isn't Dex, then the Giants really have no chance. We focused in on Phillips, Flott, and Banks really the last 2 weeks because they've been quite active, especially against better receivers. Who knows what Kansas City's bringing to the table this week? Patricia, your thoughts on Phillips, Flott, and Banks? I guess the secondary as a whole moving forward, yes, they gave up a lot of points last week, especially late, but it seemed like, at least to us, and I know that Mark and I discussed this, Phillips was active. He was there a lot. So he was certainly noticeable. Not sure about the other two.
Yeah, I'd like to see the other two be a little bit more physical. I mean, I really wish Shane Bowen would get hold of Mark Collins's tape from that Super Bowl from that Super Bowl run in I think it was 1990, when he was smacking around Jerry Rice and some of the better receivers. I mean, learn from that. I mean, when was the last time you really saw a Giants cornerback get physical like that? And there's something to be said about hitting a guy, jamming him coming off the line of scrimmage, or before he makes his break and whatnot. And they just don't do that enough. And, I spoke with Flott as well. And I said to him, how much is this rotation really kind of factoring in? Because you've got Flott coming in on first and second down, and then they put Banks in on third down. And, Mark, you could probably speak to this as far as, does a cornerback need to be out there consistently, kind of like what a running back would claim to be? But I just wonder if that's not part of the problem too, because especially when you have second and short, third and short, now it's like, okay, are you really putting these guys in the best situation when in fact you need the other guy? And the fact that nobody's really won this job is kind of concerning.
Yeah, it's really bad because you can't have two starting cornerbacks to rotate because you have none. But play a corner, you gotta play the whole game. You got to get into the flow of the game. You can't rotate your corners. That's one position that you cannot do is defensive backs. You can't. Offensive linemen, they never rotate. Receivers rotate. They're good. They run out. We run a lot too. But cornerbacks is a position you cannot rotate because you have to get a flow of the game. Now, if you go from left corner to slot, you stay in the game. You can still get a flow of the game. But the rotation, I don't understand that. As far as being physical with these the corners not being physical, I tend to think when I teach defensive backs techniques and stuff like that, from bump coverage, man coverage, to playing cover two, you got to know the formations. You just can't line up on your man and go, kind of jam him inside. I got to jam him outside. You got to know the hash split, how far the receivers from the sideline, what formation they're in. You got to know that stuff because that would tell you what you can do. Can I press bell? Can I quick jam? Can I bump from 5 yards, 3 yards, anywhere in that 5 yard distance? You got to know that stuff. And I'm going to tell you, with all the DBs I coach from college, high school and college, some pros I teach, they don't know this because it's not being taught by older guys like me and Everson Walls, Lester Hayes. Some of these guys got to reach out to guys like us to teach. And not the guys, but some of the coaches who are coaching these guys in the pro level and high school level. They don't. It's not being taught. But anyway, I think overall, yeah, they played better than last week. I wish they settle in on one corner to play the whole game. They'll get into a flow, then they get a routine of how to play the game.
I see Travis Kelce as a matchup problem. Now, obviously, that goes without saying because he's Travis Kelce and there's Patrick Mahomes and they're the Chiefs. That being said, Jake Ferguson was really good, not great, but really good. And obviously, there were a lot of points put up in Dallas. That being said, of course, Kelce dropped one near the end zone last week. I would expect that not to happen again. But again, who's covering or who's defending, quote unquote, Travis Kelce?
Well, I mean, you're going to start with the second level of the defense, which would be the inside linebackers, where the Giants, by the way, are banged up. It looks like Darius Muasau is not going to be able to play. He is in the concussion protocol, so that's a concern. So they don't have Chris Board, who was placed on IR. Micah McFadden is on IR. They're probably going to have to go with Swayze Bozeman, or they could conceivably say, okay, Dane Belton, you're going to be our hybrid safety / inside linebacker. But the other thing you need for your safeties to kind of shore up the middle of the field. And the safeties, they haven't really been as solid as you'd like them to be. I mean, Tyler Nubin has missed some tackles. It looks like he's kind of taken a little step backward from where he was last year. So they can't leave the middle of the field wide open. And we saw that so many times over the years, but especially these first 2 weeks where the tight ends in the middle of the field have all this room to navigate. I mean, you could park a Mack truck out there with all the space that they get. So they've got to tighten that up moving forward, especially against Kelce, who, while not, in his prime anymore, he's on the downside of his career, he's still pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Kansas City is going to come in and work. They're going to get Kelce his numbers, his catches, because they feel that there's nobody on the Giants secondary, nor the linebackers, since the Giants are banged up, can cover him. And what that would do would expose the outside receivers, even though Worthy may not play or may not hasn't been determined yet. But they feel that the Chiefs feel that they could loosen up that secondary more by getting Kelsey maybe 5, 6, 8 catches, maybe 100 yards, maybe a little more, and that would expose the corners on the outside.
All right, as Mark said, we don't know who's playing receiver for the Chiefs, at least not yet. I'm assuming we'll know Sunday night. But that being said, we need to pick on the Chiefs, and we will do that after a quick break. All right, up next is Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's quick, easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking projections like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards, or old friend Saquon for more than less than 1 rushing touchdown. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, we are back, and we are rolling towards the Chiefs. Obviously, a huge piece of this is slowing down the Chiefs' offense. Question is, we're not totally sure who's on that Chiefs offense. We know no Rice, but we're not sure about Worthy. We know it's the combination of Pacheco and Hunt, but again, the Chiefs can throw a lot at you, Patricia, and this is a good team despite the fact that they're 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, you can't sleep on them. Obviously, they're the defending AFC champions. Even, as Mark said at the beginning of the show, the 2 games they lost, they weren't blown out. So this is an explosive offense. And basically, whoever Patrick Mahomes has back there, he somehow manages to make them look like, the player of the week with his skills and his talent and his ability to get the ball out of there. And of course, that running that Andy Reid offense. One thing I'm kind of curious about, I believe this is the first time the Giants are facing the Chiefs under this Brian Daboll era. Mike Kafka was with Andy Reid for a long time. I wonder how much insight he's going to be able to give that, maybe doesn't necessarily show up on the film to help the Giants maybe get a little bit of a competitive edge.
Yeah, I think when Mike was here, some of the terminology's probably changed. So there's been that. But, Kansas City's going to come in pretty pissed off, being 0-2, not really finding their stride, even with players being out, not at full strength. But overall, as we said before, we know who on paper who's the better team, the defending AFC champions. But once again, being here in Kansas City now, I know this team is not sleeping on the Giants. Because one thing in playing pro ball in any sport, really, you never take anybody lightly. And the Giants, in my opinion, have nothing to lose. You go out there and do if it's 4th and 5, go for it. What do you got to lose? You're playing. No one expects you to win anyway. And I know these guys are in Kansas City. They're thinking the same thing. They're going. We're going into a hornet's nest. Everybody's against them. The fans are against them. We got to be prepared for that. And the Giants really have nothing to lose. So I look for a real good game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, to be honest with you. That's my perspective.
I'm curious how many points the Giants need to get here. Obviously, they didn't score enough week 1 against Washington, Patricia, but they certainly scored enough against Dallas. I don't know what the number is. It's funny. I thought the Giants-Cowboys would be under just because of the lack of offense from the Giants, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I'm completely confused as to what to expect points wise, offense wise, especially from the Giants.
Well, let's start with the red zone. You can't be 1-5 in the red zone. Let's start there. I mean, on the season, the Giants are 1-7 in the red zone.
Ugh.
You cannot keep relying on field goals. That's not going to get it done. So I think, the Giants should be fortunate enough to have 5 red zone attempts, get touchdowns on at least 3 of them, if not 4 of them, ideally 5. But that's going to be the big thing, because if you squander away those red zone opportunities, guess what? You're not going to score enough. And I don't care if you score 35, that's probably not going to be enough.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think the Giants are going to hang 37 points up on Kansas City.
Me neither.
So that's not going to happen. Now, what the over is, I don't care. I don't get into the gambling kind of stuff, but you're not hanging 37 against Kansas City. Will Kansas City score over 27 points against the Giants? Yeah, I think there's a great possibility with that, which goes what I said before. Even to be in a game for the Giants with nothing to lose, man, you're going to have to take some chances. As Patricia said, you can't go 1-5 in the red zone. If you have those opportunities, you better score some points. Even if you're down there and more, you got to score touchdowns instead of 3 points. Let me take that back. If you're down there, third, go fourth down, fourth and goal or whatever, you better go for it, because if you're not scoring touchdowns against Kansas City, you don't have a shot of winning. You don't. So you better score touchdowns when you get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, especially, so we mentioned this last week and Mark brought it up again, but if you have 2, you don't have 1. But that being said, Pacheco and Hunt, that's a pretty good combo. Now, obviously Hunt has a little bit of, I guess, age on him, for lack of a better term, just in regards or in respect to other running backs and their age. That being said, that's a pretty good duo. And I expect, especially if we don't know what we're getting from Dex, that could be a focus of the Chiefs, Patricia.
Yeah. And, by the way, isn't it kind of sad that we're still saying that this run defense depends on Dex? I mean, wasn't that the whole point of what they did in the offseason, to boost up that run defense? And they haven't quite done it, to where we're saying, well, if Dex doesn't step up, they're in trouble. So I think that's kind of sad, at this point in the season. But yeah, look, the run game, it's important. It sets up so much play action. I mean, it can keep your opponent off balance. And, the Giants can take a page out of that, because they have had trouble running the ball as well, So, yeah, you've got to make sure that you stop that run, especially on those early downs, because if you give Mahomes a 2nd and short, a 3rd and short, he's going to carve you up.
Yeah, and if we get week 1, week 2 Dex, then it's really going to be a problem, Mark.
Yeah, and one thing about Kansas City, they like Pacheco, and they like the backs. It's a great combo for both of them. They both can run the ball very well, and they both know how to pick up the blitz. But one thing about this, I guess, been a knock on Kansas City, especially after the Super Bowl, even before the Super Bowl, the Chiefs have a habit of giving up on the run early. And being a defensive player, once you know a team is not going to run the ball that year, it's very easy to defend the pass. If a team is throwing the ball 40, 45 times a game, you got them just where you want them. Will Kansas City do that? If the Chiefs do that against the Giants got a very good chance of winning if they can slow down the Kansas City passing attack. They could do that because if Worthy's not playing, of course, Rice isn't there. If they can stop Kelsey and mitigate the plays on the outside, they got a good chance. If they can't, we'll see what happens. I think the Chiefs will win. But I don't think the Chiefs are going to come in and try to pound the ball, because that's not what they want to do. It's well documented.
Yeah, that's not a Chiefs way, Patricia. Running the ball, winning, 15-6. That's not the Chiefs we're getting on Sunday.
No, and why should they be that way when they've got one of the best, if not the best, quarterbacks in the game right now, and one of the best tight ends in the game? So, I mean, yeah, Mark's point is well taken. They had the flexibility to basically do whatever they want, and I wish the Giants had that kind of flexibility. They could have, years ago, if somebody had listened to Ben McAdoo about getting Patrick Mahomes, but we all know how that turned out. But yeah, the Chiefs, that passing game, I think whoever they have, and we mentioned the two running backs, they can also catch the ball out of the backfield and turn it upfield. So that's another element I think that you've got to guard for if you're the Giants.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. We're focusing on the defense, but it popped into my head because we're talking about Pacheco and Hunt and the combination or the duo in the backfield for Kansas City. How about the Giants running game? And I know obviously they were down against Washington, so it was much more difficult to run the ball. But it doesn't seem like there's much of a running game there either, Mark. So again, it's not easy.
No, it's not. I mean, the first game against Washington was abysmal. At least the second game against Dallas, they had some things going, some kind of push, and that's what I wanted to see, the Giants to push. To me, Scatterbo looked very good. I like his tenacity, but can they sustain it over a long period of time? Can they do that against the Kansas City Chiefs defense? They're going to have to do something so Russell can do some kind of play action to get the ball downfield. If the Giants can't do that, it's going to be a long flipping day for the offense. You got to establish something. The quick passes, the screens, whatever. Kansas City's too damn quick. They'll stop that stuff in a heartbeat. You better establish something. You better run the ball. You better try to move the chains. Even if you go 3 and out, 3 and out, keep the clock running to try to shorten the game, the old Parcells way. That may work out for the Giants.
To that point, if I may, Cam Scatterbo saw most of the carries last week. Given the struggles of that interior offensive line, I wonder if the Giants are going to maybe flip it a little bit and say, okay, you know what, Cam, you're going to be our RB1 unofficially, and Tyrone Tracy, you're going to be our RB2, because Scatterbo at least was pushing the pile, kind of doing the job the offensive lineman should have been doing. So, I mean, just something to keep an eye on moving forward, because that kid can move piles. I always affectionately refer to him as a human bowling ball. Tyrone Tracy, not so much with moving piles the way Cam Scatterbo can.
Yeah, I completely agree. My problem, though, is Scatterbo a 1? I don't know. He wasn't drafted to be a 1. And considering they love Tyrone Tracy on kickoffs, I don't know if that's more of a demotion from the running back position. I don't know what it is.
That was temporary, I think. I think you'll see Gibson this week because they had just picked up Gibson late in the week. So I think they wanted to get him ready and situated.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Tracy and Singletary and Scatterbo. I don't know. Is there a 1? Is there a 1 there?
Well, who's the most productive? I mean, that's what you got to ask yourself. Don't matter where you're drafted. It's your performance on the field. To me, Scatterbo is a guy who could do. To me, he's more, I could say, versatile. He fits the Giants moving the ball. If that makes any sense. Dump it to him. He's going to get you that tough 3, 4, 5 yards, extra yards. The double catch, he bobbled and still got yards. That seems to be more. He fits more than Tracy does. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see with the running game. I don't know if they know. I think if you don't know, if you have a running game, it probably means you don't, and that's not a good thing, Patricia.
No, it's not, because when you become one-dimensional and now you start force-feeding it to Malik Neighbors all the time, this is like Odell all over again. Remember how, when Odell was here and the Giants, it was Odell. I mean, you called it. I mean, you could sit up there in the press box and you could call it, oh, the ball's going to Odell on the left, or it's going to Odell on the right, or Odell's going to run a slant, because that's all they had, because they couldn't run the ball. You need to be, to be two-dimensional. And the Giants really haven't been as good in that department in quite some time. So I'd like to see them run the ball a little bit better. And I mentioned, the offensive line, the interior, like I said before, still a concern of mine. Now, until such time when they shake things up or improve that interior, maybe you roll with Scatterbo and you say, okay, you know what? This is a guy who can push the pile, maybe get us some yards after contact, because I think the Giants' yards after contact is down there. It's probably, I think, I want to say in the lower third of the league. So maybe that's the route you take to temporarily fix that problem.
All right, we have one more block to go. We got to talk about the Giants at home because if you recall, just one win last season at home. We'll do that all coming up next. All right, you can just move through life or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it, like really go for it. Well, just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, final block of the show. We are ready to go because the Giants weren't at home last year. One stinking win at home. And of course, the next 2 weeks are at home, Chiefs and Chargers. Mark, win number one this week. Your thoughts?
No, no, no. But they have a great chance to. And I'll tell you why, because I think if the Giants come out and establish they have nothing to lose, have that kind of attitude, I understand the coach must be aggressive, but he must also have the players buy into it as well. If they do that, they have a legitimate shot. Now, on the Kansas City part, KC knows this. They know a wounded dog always bites. So I think that knowing Andy Reid, I do believe the Chiefs will come in knowing this, being ready and being focused, and win a close game. I'm looking at a close game, maybe 6 points.
Patricia, your thoughts on possibly getting that one win out of the way early?
I sure would like to see it, but the Giants, just for whatever the reason, I have yet to figure it out. I think they've yet to figure it out. They don't do well in primetime games. Maybe they hate them as much as I do. Everybody knows who watches my show. I am not a fan of nighttime games. The Giants, for whatever reason, they don't rise to the occasion in primetime. I want to say they've lost their last 3 on Sunday night. They definitely don't have a winning record on Sunday night. So, what that is, why that is, I don't know, but I would just want to see a competitive game at this point. I want to see which is the real Giant team. Is it going to be the team we saw week 1 against Washington, or is it going to be the team we saw week 2 against Dallas? I think it's going to be somewhere in between. And, similarly, what Kansas City team is going to show up? So if the Giants win, great. I mean, I'll be happy. It's always great to do a show on Monday morning that's recaps a win. But I want to see competitiveness, because if the Giants continue with the mistakes, if they are flat, if they can't get out of their own way, then my goodness, we're in for a long week next week.
It's also funny because I agree with the penalties and everything. Turnovers have really not been an issue through the first 2 weeks. Yes, there was the killer pick, but it's not like they had 3 or 4 turnovers each week. You could throw the turnovers on top of all the penalties and it'd be even worse, Mark.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's how it's strange how the game works out, right? You have all those penalties and you lose in overtime, which could have went the other way. It's crazy how that happens. But, as Patricia says, I just want to see the Giants be competitive. I saw that last week against Dallas. Cool. Great. But that's Dallas. Now you got rolling in the AFC champion, Super Bowl champions of years ago, coming in Arrowhead, coming into MetLife on a Sunday night game, prime time, where the Giants don't play very well over some years. What are we going to get? We shall see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And an interesting matchup that you both brought up earlier that we put in the notes here, and that's Steve Spagnuolo versus Russ. Obviously, familiar faces. Patricia, that's an interesting matchup that we'll pay attention to. And I'll speak for me, the start is crucial. They cannot get behind. That being said, if they are behind and Russ needs to chuck, Spagnuolo might have an easier time of things.
Oh, absolutely. You want to start fast. And look, this Giant team, historically, at least recently, has not started fast. They had an opportunity to do so last week. They settled for a field goal because of all the mistakes they made. This is what I mean when I say they're not good enough to overcome the mistakes. They've got to minimize those mistakes. I'm not saying, play a perfect game, although that would be great. But nobody really plays a perfect game. But, Spagnuolo, he's been doing this a long time. Giant fans are very familiar with him and how he got after Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, that first Super Bowl win. So, it's something to keep an eye on because Spagnuolo, he's a creative genius. And I don't think he gets a lot of credit or as much credit as he should get. But I would say he's probably maybe on par with Bill Belichick with some of his creativity when Bill Belichick was here as the defensive coordinator. Would you agree, Mark?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% on that comment. All you have to do is go back. If you go back to your NFL apps and watch the first 3 drives Kansas City played against Pittsburgh last year, you will see exactly what he did against Russell Wilson when he was with Pittsburgh. And he frustrated the hell out of him. And Russ wasn't Russ. It was awful. But that's what Spags does. That's what he does. I expect to see the same thing against the Giants as he did against what Spags did when Russ was in Pittsburgh. But the Giants got to try to mitigate that at some point. What do? You try to shorten the game. You better hand the ball off with Scatterboo, push the pile, milk the clock. You mitigate some of the blitzes. Because if it's 3rd and 4th and long, 2nd and long, Spags is coming. Watch the first 3 drives, Pittsburgh versus Kansas City last year. And you'll have your answer. What he's going to do this against the Giants.
Yeah, it's not the most important thing in the world, but predictions and lines and point spreads are fun. So we told you that it's 6 at this point in time, and which is a pretty healthy number for a road team. That being said, the Giants, to me, can keep it within a touchdown. Patricia, do you expect that to happen?
I'm going to say that it's going to be a 2-score game. I mean, I'm concerned about the blitz up the middle against that interior Giants offensive line. I'm concerned about how they're going to corral Travis Kelce with all the injuries and the kind of the shaky play that we've seen from the safeties. So I would say probably at least 10. The Chiefs win by at least 10. I'm hoping I'm wrong. No, my listeners know that I'm usually very optimistic, but I try to be realistic as well. And I'm not going to lie, I have concerns about this game.
I think we're all on the same page, right, Mark? It's we want them to be better than they are, but they're just not there yet.
Yeah, they're not. But I already said 6 points. So I'm, take the 6 or give the 6. It don't matter. But I would say 6+, which is much closer than a lot of people probably think. But it could get out of hand pretty quick. It all depends on how the Giants show up, how they start, what they do. Are they going to take the air out of the ball, or are they going to allow the Chiefs and Spags to blitz the hell out of them defensively?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because to me, and I did not play in the NFL, but I always like to defer. If I win the toss, I want the ball in the second half. That being said, we just spent 50-something minutes talking about the start for the Giants. Maybe they take the ball and try and get that running game going.
Would be nice. I mean, you want to start fast, but look, I don't think Dable has done that very often. I know he did that. Or did he do that in overtime? I can't remember now. I think he didn't. I think the Cowboys went first.
Yeah.
I see the logic there, but look, you've got as much time in the first half as you do in the second half. It's 30 minutes per half. What's the difference? If you have that much confidence in your team, shouldn't you just be a little bit more proactive and say, you know what? We're going to come out. We're going to punch you right in the mouth just to set the tone of this game. I don't think the Giants have done a very good job of that, to be honest with you, in the Dable era.
Not at all.
That's what I would do. I would take the ball. Take it. What do you have to lose? I mean, you're playing against one of the best teams over the last 7 years. You better show something. Show up.
Yeah. I'm the guy that wants the ball to start the second half always. To me, it's just a no-brainer. It should never even be discussed. That being said, the start is crucial, especially at home, especially with Jackson Dart on the bench. Now, look, all these things are obviously connected. You want to run the ball, keep the game close, keep your quarterback in it for sure. But things sort of go wacky quickly, especially against a team like this. So I'm fearful that the start is just is probably more important than the Giants think it should be, Patricia.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get the crowd into it early, because if you come out and the Chiefs put 7, you give the Chiefs the ball first, and the Chiefs go in and march down the field, put 7 on the board, guess what? The air starts to get out of the tire.
Right.
And you need that energy, especially at nighttime. And, going back to the point I said, why don't the Giants do so well in primetime games? It's because they don't come out of the gate fast. So they don't give their crowd enough to start buzzing and create that energy that I think transfers down to the players on the field. I mean, that's just a theory I have. I don't know if it's valid or not, but give the fans something to be happy about. Give them something to be excited about. Take the momentum. And the Giants just haven't done a very good job of that.
I'm worried about the boos, Mark. I really am. I know we've just beaten this to death today, and that's my fault. That being said, I'm worried. I really am, especially if it's a slow start.
Yeah, I mean, the word fans is short for fanatic, and fans do fanatical stuff. So that's out of your control. You just got to do what you got to do to give your team the best chance of winning. So, because no matter what you do, good, bad, or indifferent, the fans are going to be with you or against you. So you might as well do something that's going to say, you know what, I'm going to take this bull by the horn and make it happen. If I win the toss, I'm taking the ball. Let's go. Let's make something happen. Yeah, you get the fans behind you, cool. If you go 3 and out, oh well, at least we took the ball first. We gave it a shot. You get when you get the ball, win the toss. Take a couple of shots deep. Loosen up that secondary. Do something out of the norm. That's all I'm asking. And keep it close when you're doing it.
Yeah, I honestly, I totally agree. I think a bomb on the second or third play that happens to be connected, that loosens everything up and changes it completely. Now, you'd love to score a touchdown, but loosen things up, put some points on the board to start. 5 minutes in, you got a lead, Patricia, and maybe things are different.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a night game. People are probably going to be, tired or whatnot. Give them something to get excited about. Get the blood going there. Get that energy. They're handing out lights, I think, to all the fans that are coming in the game, and the lights are great, but they're no substitution for the energy that the crowd can generate. And anybody who's played sports, and I played it, amateur sports back in high school and whatnot, but when you hear the buzz of the crowd, that does something to you. And I can just imagine, Mark, at the pro level, what that must do for a pro athlete.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's one thing that's not in the playbook, and it's one thing you cannot coach is momentum. You can feel it. Trust me, you can feel it. You can feel the energy. You can feel the change, whether it's against you or for you. It's not coached. It's not taught, and that's something you got to create. And if the Giants do what the Giants can do, same with Kansas City to a point, you create your own momentum. Because when you create momentum, as an opponent, you can feel it. You can feel it on the field. You can feel it from one player to another. It's amazing how that works.
Patricia mentioned the hot seat in regards to Shane Bowen, and I think we all agree it's coming soon if it's not already there. What about Dave's? And what about Shane if they get blown out? Those calls are going to come, especially if they play poorly at home. I'm worried. It feels like they're walking the plank. It's starting to walk the plank, Patricia.
Yeah, I don't think Dave's is quite on the hot seat like Bowen is right now. I think if they get blown out, you're going to hear increased cries for Bowen to get dismissed. Now, if the Giants lose this week and they lose next week against the Chargers, and if they especially lose to the Saints, a team they should easily beat,
right
now you're going to hear cries for Dable to really get going. And that's where, if you're ownership, you have to give it some thought. Now, I don't think John Mara will do that. He doesn't usually fire guys in season. Ben McAdoo was an exception, mainly because of the whole Eli thing and how he mishandled that.
Yeah.
But if they go 0-5, and especially against a team, like the Saints, who they should beat, it's going to get really ugly. I mean, if you think it's ugly now, it's going to get uglier. And it's just, at that point, And I've often made this question or this point, and Mark, maybe you can answer it. When you're a pro athlete and you're constantly preparing week after week, giving it your all, getting beat up in the game, and you have nothing to show for it week after week after week, at what point do you kind of check out, if you will?
I'm glad you asked that, Patricia, because I went through that with Ray Hanley. We had that year that was one of the worst years of my career. It's not the fact that you check out. The system that he brought in, he had with Parcells, and then changed and brought in Rod Russ and these other guys, didn't fit us, and most of us resorted back to what we learned from Bill Belichick and Parcells. And we checked out to a point from him because the changes that he made, he lost complete control of the team. And I've never been on a team that fired a coach during the season. Football is different than baseball and basketball. When a head coach gets fired, it's usually week 12, 14, whatever, like end of the season. To fire a coach week 3, 4, 5, that his system is already set. What's the intern coach going to do? You can't just change the whole playbook. It's already there. It's already instituted. Offense and defense. So you got to ride that out. The defense is easy. A defensive coach is easy to change because you can make some tweaks there and have that. It's easy to be a defense and offense. If that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Not just this week, but the following weeks to see what happens.
All right, let's put a bow on this one. I hope the Giants can keep it close. I think it's a huge question mark to start, and that is the key. Patricia doesn't think they can stay within 10. I'm not sure. I hope it's not another blowout, but Mark, points-wise, or give us a number. Give us your thought.
I don't know, 27-17 plus the 6. So, yeah, 27-17. And that'll be a good showing for the Giants, if you ask me. They're not giving up 30, 40 points to the Chiefs, which can score those kind of points. If they don't give up over 30 points and they score 17 to 20 points, that's a win for the Giants.
Patricia, anything in closing?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the Giants, score at least 24 points in this game. I think they can do that. I think the Chiefs, though, will probably go over 30 because, the Giants, for 3 quarters, they generally play things close and then it just slips away for whatever the reason. And I know last week some of the players said, it was a long game. We started to get fatigued, which is another red flag, by the way.
Yeah.
So a lot of red flags here for me to say that, it's going to be close. And that's, again, I tend to be optimistic, but there's just too many flags coming up. No pun intended here. Too many red flags that have me wondering, how ready is this team going to be? And hopefully, I'm wrong. I'll be happy if I'm wrong. So
Joe Davis last week was talking about how tired the Giants defense was, which is amazing because one, yes, he's an astute sports guy, but he's not a player. So obviously it's obvious to guys who don't even play, which is just, I don't know.
It looks that way to me too. And I don't play pro sports.
Right.
That's on the strength and the conditioning coach. They got to look at that guy, whoever that is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll find him and we'll give him a piece of our minds. Last week you got the NFC East preview. It's not too late to binge every Locked On division preview. Be the most informed NFL fan in an 8-episode series, bringing you every division winner, breakout star, and Super Bowl contender. Find the link in the description to the Locked On NFL playlist on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That is a wrap. We are getting set for week 3. Hopefully it's not an 0-3 Giants team after Sunday night. For Patricia and Mark, I'm Jay. We'll see you soon.